Okay, I'm doing my first book sharing, unpacking kind of thing here. I have a problem buying books, even though I haven't read the books I have behind me yet. Can't help it. So last month, November, I bought, I think, 14 books. So that's what we're gonna look at today. These are the books that I bought from the bookstore delivery. So these are all the new ones. And these ones came from the used bookstore because we do have a used bookstore here in Bangkok as well. And so, yeah, I think I got 7 from the used bookstore and 7 from the new. So we can go through those real quick and see what we're looking at. The first one is Ken Grimwood's Replay. This is actually the only book in the selection that I have already read. I read it a couple of weeks ago, absolutely loved it. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, except remove some of the comedic elements for more dramedy. And instead of it being one day repeated, it's like a lifetime. It's like a 30-year lifetime that this man is trapped in this cycle when he dies, going back and reliving it. I found it to be absolutely fascinating. Highly recommend Ken Grimwood's Replay. David Gemmel's Winter Warrior. This is kind of a bummer because it's a book in the series, his Drenai Legend, whatever it is, series, but it's like book 8 or 9 or 10, and I've only read the first one. But these books are so hard to find. I can't find them anywhere. So while, of course, I would love to read them in order, I can't find them. So I saw this one at the used bookstore for a couple of dollars, and I just figured, why not? I'm just going to read it and screw the spoilers. The Golem and the Genie by Helene Wecker. So this is a book that is actually not about a golem or a genie. I think it's about a couple of immigrants. Yeah, or maybe it's an allegory for immigrants and they pretend to be a golem and a genie. Honestly, I don't know what this book is about. I picked it up because I had heard a few good things and it sounded interesting. And to be honest, the real reason I picked it up is because it was like $3. And let's hope for the best. Magical, spellbinding, dazzling. I also picked up Robert Heinlein's Have Spacesuit, Will Travel. This is sort of like a novella of his, one of the things of his that I haven't read. I mean, Heinlein is like so prolific that there's a lot of his stuff that I haven't read, even though I have read a lot of his stuff. He was one of the first science fiction authors I ever read. He's still one of my favorites today. I've heard that this story was really interesting and, again, was very excited that I could find it at the used bookstore. The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. So this is the second book in the Golden Compass series, or I think it's actually His Dark Materials, which is on TV right now. I think they've made a series about it. Anyway, they're sort of children's books, but quite advanced for children's books. And I never read them when I was a kid. So I actually just read The Golden Compass last year and enjoyed it. And so now I have been able to find book number 2. Look at that. It's a polar bear with armor. That's by far the coolest part of these books so far, in my opinion, is armor-wearing polar bears that fight. Okay, Richard Morgan's Thin Air. So Richard Morgan is an author that I've heard both good and bad things about. He is the creator of Altered Carbon, which was a show on Netflix. Was it on Netflix? A show, a science fiction show that I really enjoyed the first season of and didn't enjoy the second season that much. But I was intrigued enough with the premise to sort of look this guy up, Richard Morgan. And while this is not Altered Carbon, it is a book from him. And again, I got it used and cheaper, so I figured I would check it out. And the last used book that I was able to get is The Thevish House. The Thevish House is another great example of a book that I probably wouldn't buy if it was new, because I've been on the fence about whether or not I actually want to pick it up. But when it's used, I say, yeah, let's go for it. And that's interesting as well. On the back, who gave it a review? Richard Morgan. Small world. What is it about? Istanbul and Ottoman mysteries. So that's cool. I've been to Istanbul, really cool city. Never read a book in Istanbul, so we'll give it a try. So now we'll move on to the new books that I bought. These all coming from November. 14 books in November. The first one is Say Nothing, which is a nonfiction book about a serial killer who murdered mimes in Ireland. I don't think that's what it's about. Oh, yeah. So the IRA, that makes way more sense. The IRA are killing a bunch of people. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it, or we'll kill you too. This won the Orwell Prize for political writing. I do like to sprinkle in some nonfiction to my mainly fantasy sci-fi library. So this sounded interesting to me. It's got very good reviews, and we'll see how it goes. Next is Scythe by Neil Schusterman. So this is kind of, from what I've heard, kind of a young adult vibe, dystopian book. You can see right on the top, a true successor to the Hunger Games. Not usually the kind of books that I go for, to be honest, but I did have a colleague at work read this book and tell me it was quite interesting. And it had a nice price as well. It was only about $6. So Jade City by Fonda Lee. I had a hard time finding this one. And in fact, I broke my own rule to buy this book. I usually don't spend more than $10 on a book. And I think this one cost me $14. It was not cheap. Maybe even $15, which is the total upper limits of what I will spend on a new book. But I did it because I have a strong feeling that I'm going to absolutely love this book. Everything I've heard about it just sounds perfect for me. First of all, on the back, you'll get a blurb from Ken Liu. I don't even know how to say his last name, but he's one of my favorite writers as well. He calls it a classic Hong Kong gangster film, but in a fantasy metropolis. I've heard that there is like fantasy martial arts elements in it, which sounds amazing. This other lady on the back compared Fonda Lee to Mario Puzo, who is the writer of The Godfather. So I don't know, it sounds amazing. You're combining like Asian themed gangster movie, fantasy, martial arts all in one thing. That to me sounds perfect. So this is one that I am really, really excited about. And I spent the money to make it happen. The Priory of the Orange Tree, 9,000 pages about growing an orange tree. I don't really know what this is about. Escapism at its finest. Exciting and innovative fantasy. A queen, an ancient enemy, politics, and high adventure. Yeah, I had heard about this book. Again, another one I sort of heard mixed reviews, but the price was good. And I know this sounds crazy, but I love the cover. I mean, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Sometimes I buy books just because I really like the cover. It's really nice. I don't know when I'm going to get to it because it's quite long. It's quite long, and I'm scared of books that are 900 pages long. But we'll see. Next, Chickenhawk which is not a book about lunch or dinner, but rather about Vietnam, the Vietnam War. I love reading books on wars, but most of the books I read end up being about either ancient wars or World War II is a real favorite of mine. I don't think I've read any books about the Vietnam War. So this one sort of came up as one of the best books about the Vietnam War. I think it's like the life of a helicopter pilot. So I was very interested in checking this out. Whoa. How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immerwahr. So I think this talks about how the United States is kind of sneaky. All the kind of sneaky stuff we've been up to build our empire. Any book that kind of trashes on the United States a little bit, I love as a sort of expat American. Tell me our dirty past. Very, very interested in it. And the last one for today is A Brightness Long Ago by Guy Gavriel Kay. So this was an author that I just kept hearing about from other people who read fantasy books, that he has this beautiful prose, that he's one of the best writers in fantasy. And again, I could not find his books anywhere. And to be honest, this is not even the one I wanted. I did not want this one, but it was the one that I could find. So I just figured I'll try it. I'll try it and see if his writing is all that it's cracked up to be. And if I really like it, then maybe I can try harder to find more of his books. So yeah, not exactly a book review, more of a book preview. These are 14 books that hopefully I will read over the next 5 years or so. Since I basically read one book by two, I'll never catch up. But some of them, yeah, I've already read one, and some of them are definitely going to be read soon. So maybe you'll see them in future reviews. Let me know if you like seeing these new book purchases that I have. I've never tried this kind of video before. So, and if you didn't like it, you know what? I don't really care. So see you next time on Ransom Reviews.